You ever have one of those moments where you ask for something so small, it shouldn't even be a question, only to have someone laugh in your face like you just told the world's dumbest joke? That was me. Sitting on the edge of our peeling kitchen stool, trying not to wince from the headache pulsing behind my eyes, I looked across the room at my sister Callie and asked softly, "Hey, do you have $10? I just need to pick up my prescription. Head's been pounding for days." She looked up from her phone, blinked twice, and burst out laughing. Not a soft giggle. Not even the type of laugh that makes you question whether she misheard you. No, it was the loud, obnoxious, stomach-grabbing kind of laugh that echoed through the kitchen and even made our dad in the living room shout, "What's so funny in there?" $10, she said between laughs, waving her acrylic nails at me. "Oh my God, you sound like one of those broke girls on TikTok. What, you can't even afford Tylenol now?" I felt the heat rise in my cheeks. She knew. She knew I'd been struggling ever since Mom passed and the medical bills fell on me like a load of bricks. She knew I'd been working extra hours at the diner, juggling shifts, skipping lunch some days just to keep the lights on. But she didn't care. I looked down at my hands, trying to swallow the lump in my throat. I wasn't going to cry. Not again. Not over her. "Forget it," I said, standing up, voice low. But before I could even take a step toward the door, she added, "You should have thought twice before dropping out of college. Maybe you'd have a real job now." That one stung. Because she wasn't wrong. I did drop out. But not because I wanted to. Not because I wasn't capable. I left school to take care of our mother when no one else would. Callie stayed at her dorm, posted selfies with pumpkin spice lattes, while I cleaned blood off our bathroom floor and held Mom's hand through every chemo treatment. But no one remembers that. No one wants to. To them, I was just the tired older sister who always asked for help. The burden, the backup, the what not to be example. As I walked back to my room, I remember thinking, not for the first time, that if I disappeared tomorrow, the world would keep spinning. Maybe even spin smoother. But here's the thing about being underestimated. It hurts. At first, but eventually it fuels you. That night, while Callie posted about her new designer heels and planned her next trip to Miami with Dad's credit card, I reopened a spreadsheet I'd been building in secret. No one knew I'd been saving every tip, tracking every penny. No one knew I'd started dabbling in digital sales. Tiny, almost laughable earnings, but consistent, quiet, growing. I wasn't there yet, but something inside me whispered, "Wait, they'll see." And if you've ever been laughed at by someone who was supposed to have your back, maybe you'll understand what I mean when I say, I didn't need the $10. I needed to know I was worth more than their amusement. When we were kids, I used to braid Callie's hair every morning before school. She was 5 years younger than me, always bouncing around in mismatched socks, always singing the wrong lyrics to every song on the radio. Back then, she looked up to me like I was the moon and the stars stitched into one. But somewhere along the way that look faded. It started small. People complimenting her smile, her grades, her charm. Then it snowballed. She became the bright one, the pretty one, the girl with a future. I, on the other hand, became, what? The extra pair of hands, the unpaid babysitter, the second mom, the "you're so responsible, thank you for helping," but never the one to be celebrated. Callie had birthday parties at fancy bowling alleys and sweet 16s with rented limos. I had a gas station cake and a quiet happy birthday over reheated leftovers. But I didn't mind. Not back then. Because I thought that was love. Sacrifice, right? That's what good daughters do. I didn't realize I was becoming invisible. When Mom got sick, I dropped everything. My part-time job, my art portfolio, my chance at the design scholarship I had worked on for 2 straight years. Dad called me strong. Callie said, "You're good at this kind of stuff anyway." And for the next 12 months, I learned how to inject morphine, how to hold back tears, how to sleep sitting upright in hospital waiting rooms. After Mom died, it was like someone switched off the lights inside me. And no one noticed. Callie went back to school like nothing happened. Dad buried himself in work and silence. I tried to enroll again, but the tuition had gone up, my job barely covered rent, and my grief was too loud to ignore. That's when I started Googling things at 2 a.m. How to make money from home. Side hustles that work. Can you really earn with online stores? I clicked on everything, read every forum post, watched every cringy YouTube ad about passive income. 90% were scams. But I found the 10%. I started with reselling thrifted clothes on Facebook Marketplace. Not glamorous, but real. Tangible. Made my first $25 from an old jacket no one wore anymore. Then $40, then $60. From there, I moved into digital products. Budget templates. Printable planners. Things I used for myself, packaged and sold on Etsy. People bought them. Slowly. Then more consistently. I wasn't rich, but I was no longer desperate. I didn't tell anyone, not Callie, not Dad, because in my family, ambition from me was never taken seriously. They expected me to clean, cook, and stay quiet, but I was learning, building, quietly sharpening my tools in the dark. There was one person who noticed, though, Ms. Harmon, my old high school economics teacher. She saw me at the post office once, shipping out some packages. We talked for 20 minutes in the parking lot. She told me about a free online finance course she taught once a year, privately funded. Not many people know about it, she said, but you've got the hunger. I can see it in your eyes. I applied that night, got accepted 2 weeks later. I didn't tell Callie, I just got to work. And that's the part people don't understand about quiet people like me. We're not passive. We're patient. We don't need the spotlight to grow. We need space and silence. And the silence they gave me? It became my sanctuary. So while my sister posted filtered selfies with captions like, "Nothing can stop me, I'm the storm," I stayed in the background, grinding, learning, saving. One sale, one download, one step at a time. Until one day I opened my savings app, and the number looking back at me made my breath hitch in my throat. $3,571.34, and that was only the beginning. I didn't celebrate when I hit $3,500. There was no champagne, no dinner out, not even a victory dance. I just stared at the number on my screen, refreshed the page twice, then closed the app and went back to folding laundry. Because that's what surviving does to you. It makes you humble, almost scared to believe good things are real. Like if you smile too wide, it might all vanish into smoke. But that number? It wasn't just money, it was proof. Proof that I wasn't a failure, proof that I could build something, even if no one clapped while I did it. It started with the online finance course from Ms. Harmon. The first module was titled, "Your Mindset is Your Starting Capital." Corny, right? But I remember sitting there, lights off, earbuds in, hearing her say, "No one is coming to rescue you, but that doesn't mean you can't rise." I wrote that down and taped it to my closet door. That course taught me more than I'd learned in 2 years of college. Not because I wasn't smart back then, but because now I was hungry. I learned how to track cash flow, how to read trends, how to spot undervalued digital assets. I started testing affiliate marketing, first with tiny $5 campaigns, then $20. I studied the behavior of people who bought my budget templates and offered them bundles with email support. My conversion rate tripled, and when a content creator from Florida shouted out my store by accident, wrong tag, right niche, my sales exploded for 3 days straight. I made $1,100 that weekend alone. I didn't breathe the same after that. But I didn't quit the diner job, because real power, I learned, is not letting success rush you. It's showing up with the same focus, whether you have $350 or $3,500. Still, the shift had begun. Callie started noticing I wasn't home as much. I was taking more library hours, joining online mentorship sessions, hopping into late-night Zooms with strangers who'd become my tribe. She'd barge in sometimes with a snarky comment like, "You trying to be an influencer now?" And I'd smile, because she had no idea I was already making more in a week than she did managing her boyfriend's boutique Instagram shop. One night, she walked into the kitchen wearing a silk pajama set that probably cost more than my entire childhood wardrobe. She sighed and said, "God, I'm so stressed. I had to cancel my Bali trip. Might need to cut back on facials this month." I blinked, nodded, stirred my soup. She hadn't noticed I'd paid for the groceries that week, quietly, without receipt, without asking. Because I wasn't doing this for applause, I was doing this for freedom. But I did start allowing myself one luxury. Every Friday after my diner shift, I'd walk 2 blocks down to the nice bank, the one with the quiet glass doors and eucalyptus-scented lobby, and deposit whatever I'd made that week from my side hustle. The tellers knew me by name, called me Miss Ella, smiled like I belonged there. I liked that, not because of status, God no, but because for the first time in years, I felt seen. Then came the morning I planned to withdraw the $3,500. I had found a niche course on digital licensing that was opening for enrollment. 1 week only, cost $2,997. I was ready. I walked into the bank early, hair tied back, hoodie on, heart hammering. I handed over my ID, smiled, and said, "I'd like to make a withdrawal, please." The teller's fingers hovered over the keyboard, then paused. Just 1 second, Miss Ella. I'm going to have a manager take a quick look." My heart sank. The manager came over, looked at the screen, then at me. "There's been a temporary freeze on your account due to unusual activity. We just need to verify a few things." I nodded, forcing a calm smile. Of course. Inside I was screaming. This can't be happening. Not now. They told me it would take 24 to 48 hours, standard. "Security," they said. I walked out holding my empty wallet, the breeze suddenly cold against my arms. And where did I have to go right after that? Callie's birthday dinner. A rooftop lounge she didn't pay for. A room full of people clinking glasses, while I sat at the end of the table, nursing a soda I didn't order. She laughed all night, wearing a brand new handbag, said it was a gift to myself for surviving the quarter. And I sat there, smiling, while my bank account was locked, my stomach in knots, but my plan intact. Because when you build something in silence, no one knows how strong your foundation really is. The thing about being broke, truly broke, is that you become really good at pretending. Pretending that water tastes just as good as soda. Pretending that you already ate when the truth is, your fridge light flickers on to 3 eggs and a half-used bottle of soy sauce. Pretending you're just chilling when you're actually sitting still to avoid burning too many calories. And that night, I had to pretend harder than ever. The rooftop lounge was ridiculous. Chandeliers in cages, gold-rimmed glasses, a live violinist, standing in front of a fake cherry blossom tree. Callie always said she liked a little subtle drama when she threw a party. Nothing about this place was subtle. I wore a black dress I borrowed from a coworker at the diner, tight at the sleeves, a little loose at the waist, but decent enough to not draw attention, which, in this family, was the safest choice. Callie, on the other hand, was glowing. New curls, new nails, a soft pink dress that hugged her like it was made just for her. And on her shoulder, a white leather handbag with a golden chain strap I recognized from a designer site I once bookmarked but never dared revisit. She leaned over the table, laughing like a woman with nothing to lose. "I just had to get it," she told her friend. "It screamed me. You know what I mean?" I sipped my flat soda and told myself this was temporary. Inside my bag, next to my lip balm and hand sanitizer, sat a printout of the email from the bank. Account temporarily frozen pending transaction verification, expected resolution 1 to 2 business days. I wanted to scream. I wanted to get up, run out, call them, shake someone. But I couldn't. Not here, not with everyone watching her shine and me still hidden in the shadows. Then came the moment that twisted everything tighter. Callie stood, lifted her glass and said, "To growth, to winning, and to never letting anything or anyone hold you back." The group clapped. She glanced at me as she said it. I swear just for a second her eyes met mine with a flicker of mockery. Or maybe I imagined it, maybe I was tired, maybe I was bitter. But in that moment, I felt small. And I hated that I let her make me feel that way. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. I smiled, nodded, laughed where appropriate, but under the table my hands clenched into fists. Later that night in the silence of my room, I stared at the $3,500 figure again. It was still mine. Just paused. Like my life had been for years. But here's the thing. You don't unlearn how to survive, and you don't unbuild momentum. The bank could freeze the funds, but not the fire. 2 days later I got the email. Transaction verified. Account restored. Funds available. I exhaled so deeply, my shoulders dropped 2 inches. But I didn't spend the money right away. No. I waited until Sunday dinner. Dad made his famous dry meatloaf. Callie brought over store-bought mac and cheese and called it homemade. I showed up with my laptop. Halfway through the meal, I opened it on the kitchen counter. Callie raised a brow. "What's that for?" I didn't answer right away. I just turned the screen toward her. Where the receipt of my $3,500 withdrawal glowed in bold font, with my name, my account, my money. She stared, blinking. Twice. Just like that day in the kitchen when she laughed at me. Then, slowly she stood up, walked to the counter, leaned in. "Is that real?" she whispered. I didn't smile, didn't gloat, just said, "Yes." And for the first time in years, Callie, my flawless, untouchable sister, had nothing to say. She stood frozen, like someone had just unplugged her from her own performance. The receipt on my laptop screen glowed like a spotlight in that dimly lit kitchen. $3,500, withdrawn. My name, my account, my success. Callie stared at it, then looked at me. Then back again. And for the first time since we were kids, she didn't look above me. She looked lost. I closed the laptop quietly and went back to slicing the bread for dinner. "What is this from?" she finally asked. Her voice quieter than I'd ever heard it. I shrugged. "Just something I've been working on." She blinked hard. "Like, from your job?" I looked at her. "Which one?" And that's when her face changed. Just a flicker. But I saw it. A crack. Because she didn't know. She had no idea that I'd been juggling 2 jobs, running a digital storefront, taking courses late at night while she was watching reality TV and complaining about chipped nail polish. She stepped back, like the air had gotten thinner. "You've been hiding money?" I almost laughed, but not in the way she once had. "No," I said calmly. "I've been building something. That's not the same thing." Dad, who'd been scrolling his phone on the couch, looked up. "Everything okay in there?" "Fine," we both said at the same time. Except it wasn't. Callie sat down at the kitchen table slowly, like gravity had just increased around her. "I thought you were struggling," she said, almost accusing. "You asked me for $10 just a few weeks ago." I nodded. "And you laughed." Her lips parted. No words came out. "I wasn't testing you," I continued. "I really did need that money, but not nearly as much as I needed to know how you'd respond." That landed. She lowered her eyes. "I didn't mean to laugh at you," she said softly. "I just thought—" "What? That I'd never figure things out?" I said. "That I'd always be the one asking, and you'd always be the one denying?" She didn't answer. The silence stretched, and then, because pride doesn't die easily, she tried to flip it. "Well, I'm glad someone in this family is finally making money," she said, tossing her hair back. "I mean, good for you." But her voice cracked at the edges, because even she couldn't pretend to be unfazed. That handbag she flaunted, on credit. Her lifestyle, a carefully curated illusion she'd been barely keeping afloat. And suddenly, the sister she once pitied was sitting across from her with more stability than she'd felt in months. I could have rubbed it in. I could have listed every sacrifice, every late night, every skipped meal, but I didn't. Instead, I pulled a small folded envelope from my purse and slid it across the table. "What's this?" she asked. "Open it." Inside was a printed email. Proof of my course enrollment, the one I'd paid nearly $3,000 for. Digital licensing and scalable income models. Masterclass enrolled and confirmed. She read it. Slowly. "You're serious about this," she said, more to herself than me. I nodded. She swallowed. "And what are you going to do with it all?" "I'm going to make sure I never have to ask anyone for $10 ever again." Her eyes filled, not with tears but with realization, that she had been laughing at someone who, all this time, had been becoming. Her voice cracked. "I didn't know you had it in you." "Yeah," I said, standing. "Neither did you." I left the table after that, not out of anger, but because I wanted her to sit in it. In the silence, in the reality, in the image of me walking away without needing her validation. And maybe, just maybe, in that moment, she started to wonder how many other things she'd been wrong about. It happened 2 days later. I was in the kitchen, halfway through organizing receipts for tax season, something old Ella would have never cared about, when I heard a soft knock at the door. Callie never knocked. She either barged in, unannounced, or yelled from the hallway like she owned the air. So the knock? That was strange. I opened the door to find her standing there, no makeup, hoodie half-zipped, hair messily tied up. She looked human, not the curated version of herself. Just the raw kind that people usually hide. Her eyes were red. "Can I come in?" she asked, voice hoarse. I stepped aside. She walked in slowly, looked around like she was in a stranger's house, and then sat down on the floor. Not the couch, not a chair, just the cold kitchen tiles. And then she did something that startled me. She started crying. Not soft, elegant tears either, the kind that shakes your whole body, the kind you can't talk through, the kind that leaves your pride puddled at your feet. I stood frozen. This was the girl who once called me weak for getting emotional over a breakup, The girl who told her friends I wasn't built for pressure. Callie, I said gently. What happened? She wiped at her face, but the tears kept coming. I'm in trouble, she whispered. I sat down next to her, not too close, not too far. Just enough to hear her say it. My credit cards are maxed. I missed my rent this month. Trevor left. I thought I had time to figure it out, but… She broke off, sobbing again. Trevor, the boyfriend with the boutique startup who lived like he was already a millionaire, gone. And the bag? I asked carefully. She laughed through tears, bitter. Still on payment plan, 4 more months to go. That silence between us grew louder. Then she looked at me, really looked at me. I used to think you were pathetic, she said, eyes puffy, voice stripped of ego. I thought you'd never go anywhere. You were always tired, always broke, always stuck. And now… She swallowed. You have your life together, and I'm the one falling apart. I didn't say anything right away, because part of me wanted to hold that moment, to taste the validation I had been denied for so long. But another part of me, something deeper, older, and quieter, just felt tired. Not the kind of tired that sleep fixes. The kind that comes from years of being misunderstood, of being underestimated, of being alone. Why are you here, Callie? I finally asked. She looked down. Her next words were barely audible. I need your help. There it was. The same sentence I had once tried to say through trembling lips when I asked her for $10. But now she was the one trembling. What kind of help? I asked softly. She hesitated. I don't know. I thought maybe you could loan me a little? Just to get through the next 2 weeks. I'll figure it out after that. I promise. I stood, walked to the counter, pulled out my checkbook, and then paused. Because in that moment, something clicked. I could give her money. I had it. But that wouldn't fix what was really broken. So instead I tore a piece of blank paper from the pad and wrote down a website link. The course I took, I said, sliding it to her. It starts next month. It's hard. It'll push you, but it works. She looked at it like I'd handed her a puzzle. No cash? I shook my head. I didn't need money when you laughed at me, I said. I needed belief, support, a chance. She nodded slowly. Then, without warning, she dropped her forehead to her knees, arms wrapped around her legs, shoulders shaking. And just like that, my perfect little sister, the one who always walked above, was on her knees in front of me. But this time, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt peaceful. Because I didn't rise by tearing her down. I rose because I refused to stay beneath myself any longer. And as I reached down, offering my hand, not with pity, but with boundaries, I whispered something I wish someone had said to me long ago. You don't need to borrow money, Callie. You need to rebuild your worth. I didn't hear from Callie for a few days after that. No texts, no knock on the door, no passive-aggressive memes posted on her story, just silence. And for the first time in a long time, silence didn't feel like abandonment. It felt like space. I used that space to breathe, to sit with everything I'd carried, not just the years of resentment or the laughter that once crushed me, but also the pride I hadn't let myself fully feel. I wasn't rich, I wasn't famous, but I had built something out of scraps. Quietly, without applause. And that made it mine. One afternoon I walked to the little park 3 blocks from the diner, sat on the same bench I used to collapse onto after double shifts, shoes soaked, hands blistered. This time I had an iced coffee in one hand and a fresh notebook in the other. Not to escape life, but to shape it. I began mapping out my next course idea. A digital workshop for women who'd been overlooked, just like me. The tagline wrote itself. For every woman who's ever been told she's asking for too much, this is for you. That same evening, I opened my inbox. One unread message, from Callie. Subject line, you were right. It was short, simple. She said she enrolled in the course, said she cried halfway through the welcome video, said she hadn't realized how much of her life was built on fear, of being irrelevant, of being unliked, of being second. She didn't ask for money. She thanked me for not giving it, and then she ended with, I don't know if we'll ever be close, but I want you to know I see you now, I really do. I stared at those words for a long time, because she was right. We might never braid each other's hair again, might never share clothes or swap secrets at 2 a.m., but something between us had shifted. And it wasn't because I'd won, it was because I'd stopped needing to. A few weeks later, I spoke at a small women's networking event. It wasn't fancy, folding chairs, homemade muffins, borrowed mic. But I stood there, hands steady, voice clear, and told my story. I didn't tell them about the $3,500, I told them about the $10, and the laugh. And how sometimes you don't realize your worth until someone tries to reduce it to spare change. After my talk, a woman in her 50s came up to me with tears in her eyes. My sister did the same thing to me, she said. But I never found my way back from it. I squeezed her hand. You still can, I said. We all can. And maybe that's what this was really about. Not revenge, not proving anyone wrong, but remembering that I was never broken to begin with, just buried under expectations that didn't belong to me. So now when I look at myself in the mirror, I don't see the struggling older sister anymore. I see a woman who saved herself, a woman who when faced with laughter chose not to shrink, but to build. And maybe that's you too. Maybe you're reading this and thinking about the time someone laughed at your dreams, or dismissed your struggle, or made you feel like $10 was too much to ask for. If you've ever been there, I see you, and I promise, you are worth far more than you've been led to believe. So build, quietly, loudly, stubbornly, whatever way you need. Because one day, they'll ask you how you did it. And you'll smile, not to gloat, but because you'll finally understand. You didn't need their permission. You just needed to remember your power. If this story made you feel something, share it. Someone else out there might need it more than you know. And if you've ever been laughed at for dreaming big, drop a comment. Let's remind each other, we are not here to be small.